Holidays are here once again in the sartorial kitchen, and this year is all about chocolate. Kicking things off, I'm doing a Black Forest version of a cherry cobbler. Then it's classic buckeyes, peanut butter and chocolate. And last but not least, my Christmas crack. So why don't you pull up a chair and dine with me?
Everybody, it is holiday season here in the sartorial kitchen. This is my last episode of the season, and it is one of my favorites because I really enjoy baking. That's why I feature a lot of baked goods in many of my episodes. So this is a recipe idea that I got from Mom, and I thought, what a great idea. So I thought this, my theme for this episode would be ganache. So we're using melted chocolate in like every recipe. So I've done a lot of cobblers before, where you just take the canned fruit and you put like usually a yellow sponge on top. But she said, what about doing chocolate? And I thought, oh, brilliant. So we're going to do, it's going to be a Black Forest cobbler, so it's going to be cherries. And I got some devil's food because I feel like it's a little more rich. Now, I'm not going to just dump out a can of cherries, and open up a box of cakes mix. You know, I have to kind of zhuzh these up a little. So I'm going to take a spoon here. I've got some goodies here. A little orange extract. Extracts are a great way to jazz things up. So I'm going to do a little orange in there. This is probably about a 1/4 teaspoon. And a little orange in there. And I've also got some vanilla. Smell that orange. Now the vanilla, we're going to do about a teaspoon here. I'm going to add about half there and half here. And then I've also got some almond. Almond and cherry go really well together. Now almond is really strong, so I'm going to add only about a half cupful here. And then I'm going to divide that up between both. Beautiful. And then one last thing to freshen it up. Some zest. This is another great way to freshen up any kind of canned ingredients or ingredients that are just potentially not so fresh. And I'm just going to zest a little right over top here. And I'm doing it this way because then I can mix everything up in the can and I don't have to dirty any extra dishes. Now you can do orange too. Orange goes really well with cherry. That's why I did the orange extract. But I just happen to have some lemons on hand, so I thought, we'll do lemon. Okay, that is it for the zest. And again, we always watch for stragglers there. And then I'm just going to take my spoon here and just kind of stir this a little before I dump it out. Just to make sure all those ingredients are well incorporated, because it's going to be easier to stir in this can than to mess with this metal pan here. And then we'll just go ahead and dump this can out. I'm using 2 cans. You're probably going to need about 2, depending on the size of the pan that you're baking in. And you want to get all this liquid out, because that's going to help the cake bake. And then we'll dump this guy out here too. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And then I'm just going to take my spoon and just spread this out evenly so you get a nice even layer all the way to the edges. I don't want a big clump of cherries in one part of the cake. I want each bite to have all the good stuff. And just kind of, you can stir that around a little more if you feel like you need to. And just a nice even layer. And this is how simple this recipe is. So, next we take our cake mix, and again you can use any kind of cake mix you want. If you want to do just a basic cobbler, I would do like a yellow sponge. You could even do cornbread mix just to, like, really shake it up. So we're going to take this devil's food mix and we're just going to dump it right on top. I'm just going to come in here just kind of gently, because again I want this to be kind of an even layer. And then we'll come in here with some clean hands and I'll just kind of gently spread this out. I don't want to stir it into the cherries. I want it to sit on top. And then last but not least, our butter. And you have to use cold butter, not room temp. You want a stick of butter that you have just pulled out of the fridge, because you want it to have plenty of time to melt. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a greasy mess that is not cooked through. And that is no fun. So I'm going to use a whole stick here. And I'm just going to cut it into little slivers, about 1/4 inch thick, and just dart the entire cobbler with my butter. Okay, that is the last of our butter. This is a lot of butter, but you really need it for the top to cook. So how this works, the pie filling gets kind of bubbly and it bubbles up and it cooks the underside of this. And then the butter is going to melt slowly since it's cold, and it's going to cook the top part. So you have this lovely little chocolate crust. And then once it's cooled, I'm going to top it with a chocolate ganache. So it's just going to be very decadent. So I'm going to pop this in the oven. I've got it preheated to 400. This is going to cook for about 20 to 25 minutes. We'll probably check it along the way and see how it does. And then we will move on to our buckeyes. Alright guys, so my cobbler is in the oven, and we're going to work on some peanut butter balls, or buckeyes as we call them around here, because they look like the buckeye that you see from the trees. Although these buckeyes are edible. So I'm starting with some peanut butter. Want about 2 cups, I believe. I'm not making a large batch, but I do want a decent amount. And I'm just kind of measuring this out, just so I get a kind of rough 2 cups here. And I think that's good. Now, let's see, we also need some vanilla, just to kind of jazz these up a bit. Now I'm using smooth peanut butter. You can use crunchy if you like. I just prefer smooth. And now for the powdered sugar. And this I will kind of eyeball since my cup is dirty. I want to start with about 1 cup. And then we can always add more if we need to. And then I'm just going to kind of fold this in carefully so we don't get powdered sugar everywhere. And then I just kind of, once it's somewhat incorporated, then I'll continue to just kind of stir it around until it's nice and thick. And you'll kind of know, you'll get that consistency where it's not like too sticky, but you can actually work with it pretty well. Okay, so that was about 1 cup. I think I am going to go ahead and add a 2nd cup here. And I think that's going to be pretty good here. And then again, just slowly work this in until it's well incorporated. You'll know the consistency. It's almost going to be kind of like a batter where it's pliable and it's not quite as sticky, so we can roll them out. Okay. Alright, I think this is pretty good. It's pliable now and the powdered sugar is well incorporated. Perfect. Okay. So I've got my gloves on here because this is a dirty job. And I want these to turn out well. So I'm wearing gloves so the buckeyes stay on our parchment and not on my hands. And then I've got a sheet pan here lined with parchment to keep them from sticking. Now if you want, you could take an ice cream scoop, just so you know these are all going to turn out the same size. But I just kind of eyeball it. I take a little pinch. And I think they look more homemade this way, because then they're not, some are a little bigger than others, they're not precisely the same size. So you can tell that they've been made themselves and not store-bought. And you just kind of roll them out like that. We just pinch a little off. Maybe about an inch in diameter. And then we'll just set it on our tray. Just kind of roll them out until they're somewhat spherical. Doesn't have to be a perfect circle. I think that's part of the magic of it all, is that they are kind of oblong, some of them, and you can tell that they were homemade. Alright, there we have it. That made about 32, so a pretty decent amount. And for the most important part, as I mentioned, the toothpicks. Because without the toothpicks, we will not be able to dip these in our chocolate. And I just plop them in all the way down. Perfect. So, I'm just going to take this tray and pop it in my fridge. I'd say at least an hour to 2 hours. Just so these get nice and firm. You could stick them in the freezer for like maybe a half hour, because you want these to be nice and firm before you go to roll them in the chocolate. Alright, on to our last recipe. This is one that I saw on TikTok, and I thought I would kind of try it out. Of course, I'm going to zhuzh it up a little. But they call it Christmas crack, and it's crackers, caramel, and chocolate. What's easier than that? So you could use Ritz. I'm using saltines. I've seen it done both ways. The saltines I like because I feel like they're really salty, and the salt kind of cuts through all the sweetness that we have going on here. So I'm just going to lay these out. Just one nice little simple even layer. Now you could just buy like a jarred caramel and pour it over top, but I thought that was too basic. I'm going to actually do some kind of cooking here, so I'm going to make my own. I've already got my skillet going here on a medium to low heat. I'm going to drop in a half stick of butter while I finish laying out my crackers here. And just let that start to melt. Grease it with a little spray, just so it's not too hard to get up here. But there we have it. There's our crackers. It is just as simple as that. I'm done with these guys for now. Our butter is nice and melted, so I'm going to go ahead and add my sugar here. Turn that down just slightly. And I'm just going to use my bread here. This bread I keep in here because it keeps the sugar moist. I need about a cup. I think that's going to be pretty good. And I know the crackers are awfully salty, but I am going to add just a pinch of salt to this mixture as well. And we're going to stir this together. I want that butter and that sugar to come together. And the sugar will also as it gets hot, it'll kind of break down, and then this will just become a nice little mixture here that we'll pour over top of our crackers. Meantime, let's check our cake. I did go ahead and set it for about 5 more minutes. Ooh, it's bubbling away nicely. Look at that. Oh yeah, it's nice and hot. You can see where it's kind of, where the butter has really melted beautifully. It's just a little bit browned, but not too dark. So we're going to set this here, and I'm going to let it cool for quite a while, actually, so it gets nice and firm, and then we can pour our ganache on top. But I'm going to leave my oven on because we need it for the crackers. Alright, this is starting to break down beautifully. I'm going to add a little more of my vanilla here. The vanilla really enhances all the flavors here. And just kind of stir that in. I'm going to continue to let this cook down just a little more. We've still got some hard pieces of sugar that need to mellow out, and then we can pour this over top. Yeah. Make sure we get all of this out of here. It's so good. We'll turn this baby off, and then you just want to be really quick and just kind of spread this out, just so it's a nice even layer all around. We prepare it for the oven. I've got some chocolate chips here. This is a mix. I thought it would be fun to do a mix of chocolate here. And we're just gonna sprinkle this on top. Just kind of a nice even coating. It's gonna melt and kind of spread out in the oven. So we're good there. And for an extra crunch and a nice richness, little nuttiness, I've also got some hazelnuts here. I'm just going to kind of sprinkle out. Beautiful. This is going to go in the oven, not for too long, just enough for the chocolate to melt. I've still got it at my 400 degrees. This is only going to go for 8 to 10 minutes tops, just till the chocolate is nice and melted, and we will be good to go. Oh, this looks so good. Look at that. Oh, so exciting. These are going to be really good, guys. Okay, now I'm just going to come in here, and we're going to spread out this chocolate. Wow. The chocolate and the nuts. And it's just melting beautifully. And it almost kind of gets incorporated with that sugar too, and it just becomes like one big old thing here. And the crackers get kind of toasted, which adds like another layer to it all. And I like having the white chocolate in here too, because it gives it a little contrasted color, so it's not all like brown and brown. That's gorgeous. Okay. Now we have to let this cool. It'll harden, and then we can break it up into pieces. Okay, I think this is hardened nicely. I would love to give it a little taste. Let me find a good piece here. You can see like the cracker is nice and toasted, and you've got that chocolate on there. sweet and salty. You get that richness from the chocolate. So good. I may have to sneak me another piece. So I basically just come in here with a spatula and we'll just break this into little pieces. Some of them stayed separated like that, some of them kind of morphed into these giant clusters. And then what I do is, or what I've seen people do, is you kind of just lay them on a platter and then people can kind of help themselves. I think what I'm going to do is kind of divide these up into little baggies and then people can get their own. But while I finish doing that, I think it is time to get out our buckeyes. Alright, I've pulled the buckeyes out. It's been about an hour and a half. They're nice and firm. Now we're going to work on our chocolate here. We're doing a tempered chocolate. I don't think I've ever shown you guys that before. So it's kind of where you melt chocolate like you're doing a ganache, but then when you temper it, it helps it hold its temperature. So it's great for like a recipe like this. And it gets nice and shiny. So I got a bag of chocolate chips here. And I'm just going to save about a 1/4 cup here. And you'll see why in a minute. Now, to melt chocolate, you just need chocolate and you need a fat. You can do butter. I wouldn't do like an olive oil because it's going to flavor it. But I've got some coconut oil here. And I just went about 3 teaspoons. Now you can do a double boiler if you want. You want to wait for the water to boil. You want to sit there and stir, stir, stir. Please, I am impatient. So what I'm going to do is pop this in my microwave at 30-second intervals until my chocolate is fully melted. It's going to take about 2 to 2.5 minutes total. Okay. That was our first 30 seconds. I'm just going to kind of stir this around, and you can see where it slowly started to melt on the bottom. So I just kind of turn it over on itself. It's where the unmelted pieces are now on the bottom, and the melted pieces are on top. And then we'll pop it back in for another 30 seconds. Alright. And then we give it another stir. This is to make sure that the chocolate cooks evenly and no parts of it actually burn. This is not what we want here, and this looks really good. But I think we're going to do one more round of 30 seconds. So that'll be, I guess, 1:30 total. It just depends on how hot your microwave gets. Beautiful, and then you stir that around, and then it's beautifully melted. Now I'm going to throw a little more vanilla in here. Vanilla is great for bringing out the natural flavors of the chocolate. And we'll stir that in. Then we pour in the rest of our chocolate chips, which I reserved about a 1/4 cup, give or take. I didn't actually measure this. And then we slowly stir in the rest of our chips. And they will slowly melt into this mixture here. And then you will have your tempered chocolate. So now we can start dipping these babies in our chocolate. Okay, I'm just going to stir this a little more, and look at it, nice and velvety, and you can see that it's maintained its sheen, which is exactly why we do it like that. And so much easier than standing over the hot stove all afternoon waiting for the chocolate to melt down. So now we're just going to come in here, and these are nice and firm. They've been in the freezer for a little while. And just kind of slosh them around a little bit in the chocolate. And then set them down onto our parchment. And there you have it, buckeyes. Let's dip up the rest of it. That is the last one here. And as you can see, like I said before, they're all different sizes, different amounts of chocolate on them, so you can tell that they are homemade. Now these need to chill in the fridge again until the chocolate hardens, but I'm impatient, so I am going to go ahead and sneak them right now. So good. Peanut butter is nice and creamy, not too sweet, and then the chocolate just gives it a nice richness. So I'm going to go ahead and let these set up, and then we can dish them out. But I do have a little ganache left, and as I said before, we're going to coat our cake, and it's nice and chilled now. It's been sitting here for almost an hour, and I've got just a little bit of this ganache left, which I was hoping I would. And then we're just going to kind of drizzle it over top while it's still nice and pliable. You don't have to get too fancy, just kind of back and forth with the spoon until you get a nice coating. Beautiful. I'll just take the back of my spoon and lightly even this out, so we just get a nice thin layer on top of this whole thing. This is just going to give our cobbler a little something extra here and be nice and rich and flavorful. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm tempted to try a piece now, but I think I'm going to take this with me to church in the morning and let the choir have at it. So you guys will have to wait until then. See you soon. Well, I would say my cobbler cake was a hit. It's about half gone. Before I run home with this, I think we will give it a little taste here, just so you guys. Oh, it's so good. The top is nice and fudgy, like a brownie. You get the tartness of the cherries. They don't even taste like canned cherries. They're so fresh, full of flavor. So good. Well, I thank you guys for joining me, as always. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit me up in the comment section.
Merry Christmas from the Sartorial Chef.